Hey guys, Scott Sullivan here, and in this video we're going to talk about the question, is belief in God as silly as believing in fairy tales? Alright, so I want to talk about in this video this issue of kind of some name calling that goes on in discussions with atheists that theists might have, people who believe in God. They may encounter, or they certainly will encounter, a lot of name calling. And I get this on a daily basis, Facebook messages and stuff like that, people sending me emails, whatever. And they'll say things like, believing in God, that's as silly as believing in fairy tales. So take, for example, anything you want, like Tooth Fairy or Zeus. So belief in God is as silly as believing in those things. And the people who say this kind of thing really are misinformed, and I think they simply evince a certain ignorance of the history of Western thought, because certainly when you look at the great philosophers of Western philosophy, I'm talking about people like Plato, Aristotle. Obviously these aren't even Christians, but other believers like the Islamic philosophers, Avicenna, for example, Thomas Aquinas. There's been a whole history of thinkers, whether they're Christian or not, who have given philosophical arguments for the existence of God. So this is a very strong tradition. It's a very strong intellectual tradition in the West. And to my mind, these arguments have never been countered, at least the good ones of the tradition have never been sufficiently answered by atheists, and these arguments are still taken seriously today. For example, you can go to a university and you can sign up for a philosophy or religion class and you can learn about these arguments. So in the highest levels of academia, these classical philosophical arguments for the existence of God are taken seriously. But of course, nobody takes the belief in fairy tales seriously. There's no philosophical tradition from Plato or anybody else giving arguments for the existence of certain fairy tale beings. So I just think this sort of name calling really is unfortunate by the atheist, because we want to be in a search for truth. I think if you want to have a meaningful dialogue with someone, they have to deal with the reasoning that has been given. You can't resort to name calling. Name calling doesn't deal with the arguments themselves, and unfortunately that's what a lot of these atheists do. And to give another example that these arguments are taken seriously, we see whole in our time today, we see whole journals devoted to the philosophy of religion, where these arguments are taken seriously, pro and con, the ideas are batted back and forth, again, at the highest levels of academia. But of course, you don't see this done with beings from fairy tales. So unfortunately, a lot of these atheists who make this kind of claim that belief in God is like believing in Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy, they just really are uninformed. And I think it's sad, because it's difficult to have a meaningful dialogue with such a person, because this kind of person wants to engage in insults and demeaning sorts of statements and not deal with the reasoning itself. And that's very unfortunate, and it certainly doesn't lead to a knowledge of truth, you see. So I just want to encourage you, if you've ever encountered someone like this, who just, an atheist who just says things like this, who says things like belief in God is like believing in fairy tales, I would just ask them to engage the arguments. Where did Plato go wrong? Where did Thomas Aquinas go wrong? You want to call names and say it's silly as believing in fairy tales. If that's true, then how come there are university classes devoted to this subject? How come there are academic journals and professional philosophers who still think that these are good arguments, you see? So if you want to deal with the God question fairly, I really think you do have to get into the actual argumentation itself. And quite frankly, when atheists do that, they don't do so well. It's easy to sit back and call people names. That's of course very easy to do, but the devil is in the details, as they say. Get into those arguments for the existence of God and tell us, where do they go wrong? When you ask the atheist this sort of question, you're not going to get a very good answer. All right, guys, if you like this video and you want to see more like it, I'm releasing new videos all the time in the areas of philosophy, theology, and apologetics. If you like that kind of thing, then click this button right here. This is a subscribe button. You click this button, and what that's going to do is it's going to subscribe you to my YouTube channel, so that whenever I release a new video, you're going to be notified about it right away. Also, you got to get a copy of this. Click this image right here. This is my How to Counter Atheism course. So click this image. It'll take you over to my website where you can get a course on countering the 10 most common arguments that atheists use to undermine belief in the existence of God. Now, if you're on a mobile device right now, these links in the video, they're not going to work, but they are right down there in the video description. I want to thank you for watching this video, and God bless.